Fussy, you do Martha Graham, or Twyla.
It's interesting to note they don't call this the 10th planet. They call it the 9th planet. And they're now trying to downplay Pluto. So, I think it's funny because when you read it, in one breath they're saying they were quite skeptical the planet could exist, and then they go on to tell you exactly how big it is and that it's got its own orbit and everything else. So I don't really get it. If you read it, it's saying this would be a real 9th planet, he added. Yeah, I just don't understand why they would make this comment, tell you that it's got its own orbit and everything else, and then not tell you it's there. I don't, and then tell you it might be there. It's kind of funny to read, actually.
The good news is that these things happen very rarely, and they're separated by millions, even billions of years.
It's going to be soaring across the sky for a few months. That's going to be incredible. And then in 2029,
check it out.
We've got Apophis. Now this thing is big. And this thing,
how big are we talking?
It's big enough to cause major damage if it were to impact. Now, what they're saying about Apophis is that it's going to pass so close to Earth that it's going to skim across the atmosphere, knock out a bunch of satellites like a bowling ball.
So basically, this is something that happened in 1908. Remember the Tunguska?
And they changed the subject.
So you clear out the West Coast and then you watch it happen.
I know it sounds crazy.
We have just received confirmation from a high-level insider who worked at the Department of Defense and has access to some of the top government officials that something entered our solar system about 2 years ago. But then these 5 objects just stopped and are not acting according to any known laws. They just stopped.
It's getting out to the public, but it's so strange, given what we're raised in physics and astrophysics and so forth, and when you find something that does not follow the laws, any known laws that we can observe, you don't really want to say these things are under intelligent control, but what else do you say? Because they came into our solar system.
They just stopped.
G'day guys, George Creek, Orchard, Mareeba, Queensland, Australia. Time and date is pretty spot on. Just going to show you something here, guys. There you go, look. That's coming up, but that's not the thing. Look at this. What is that? Once again, we've got the blue light. Can you see that? What is that? It's massive, whatever it is. I'll just go to the screen here. That's huge. It's coming up over the horizon. There's east, as you can see.
I misspoke.
This card is called Seize the Time. It looks like a huge asteroid hitting the Earth. I believe this card gives us the date of this event. Look at the 9 on the clock, written in Roman numerals. Then we have a sword that is slanted, like the slash mark you would write on a date. Then if you add up the 3 numbers to the right of the sword, you come to a total of 24. So you have 9/24, or September 24th, hidden right on this card that seems to show an asteroid hitting the Earth. Right next to the date, you have a hand pointing to the asteroid, as if to say on September 24th, this event will happen.
I think it's going to be an important topic when they're actually visible. A lot of people, in fact, the news of these things is actually drifting out. There are 5 of them, and they're actually, it's getting out to the public. But strange, given what we're raised in physics and astrophysics and so forth, and when you find something that does not follow the laws, any known laws, that we can observe. And you don't really want to say these things are under intelligent control, but what else do you say? Because they came into our solar system and effectively stopped. And by the way, when they did this, that's when the sun started doing a lot of different things. All the planets began to respond. And it's just they're taking their toll. And Earth is, we're feeling the effects of what's going on in other planets also, like Neptune, like Saturn. Mars is also experiencing these rages of storms and so forth. So it's not just Earth, it's the entire solar system. I think it's going to be an important topic when they're actually visible. These storms are solar system wide. They're solar system wide, and they're working their way inwardly. Here's the deal: the dangerous effects, or the effects they're observing in the outer atmosphere, or in the outer solar system, near Neptune and those planets, they haven't reached us yet. So can you imagine, the weather's bad now, but what happens when the effects actually reach us? And that's, Navy research labs and the Army laboratories and the Air Force Command and a host of government entities are now nervous about these things. I think it's going to be an important topic when they're actually visible. They're spread out, but it would appear they all took position, and they just stopped. They've been sitting there for the last 2 years. Really? They just stopped. There is a bigger object that is following physics, and it brought with it clusters of other objects coming into our solar system. So we'll likely feel the effects of those. I have the feeling that their effects and these things will be visible sooner than later. I certainly don't walk around with fear or anything else, and I know a lot of people do because they don't understand God's architecture. I think it's going to be an important topic when they're actually visible.
Now please listen again carefully to what he says here.
So are they traveling together?
No, they're spread out, but it would appear they all took position, and they just stopped. They've been sitting there for the last 2 years. Really? They just stopped.
Wow, for the last 2 years they've been sitting there.
Yes.
So, Pastor has a question here. Well, they hit the Earth, but if they've just stopped and they don't have a known pattern, I guess there's no way to know that.
Yeah, it's absolutely, no, there's no known pattern, but there is a bigger object that is following physics, and it brought with it clusters of other objects coming into our solar system. So we'll likely feel the effects of those.
So did you hear what this man just said? He said that 5 objects entered our solar system 2 years ago, and then they just stopped. Let me say that again. 5 objects entered our solar system about 2 years ago, and then they just stopped. Is that not incredible? We have just received confirmation from a high-level insider and worked at the Department of Defense and has access to some of the top government officials that something entered our solar system about 2 years ago, but then these 5 objects just stopped and are not acting according to any known laws. They just stopped. But then he goes on to say that there's another large body that's acting according to the laws of physics that is coming and bringing debris with it that will affect the Earth in the near future.
There are 5 of them, and they're actually, it's getting out into the public, but it's so strange, given what we're raised in physics and astrophysics and so forth, and when you find something that does not follow the laws, any known laws, that we can observe, and you don't really want to say these things are under intelligent control, but what else do you say? Because they came into our solar system.
They just stopped. They just stopped. They just stopped 2 days ago. Just the first couple of paragraphs. It says, Pope Francis on Friday marked the second anniversary of his surprise election by predicting that he won't be Pope for long, and by calling a special Jubilee year to focus the Church on his top priority while he's still around, mercy. I have the sensation that my pontificate will be brief, 4 or 5 years, Francis said in an interview with the Mexican broadcaster Televisa. I don't know, or 2 or 3. Well, 2 have already passed. Isn't that interesting? He's calling for a Jubilee year in 2015, and he's saying his papacy could last for 2 to 3 years, and 2 have already passed. So that's quite an interesting statement to make, hinting that his papacy might only last for up to another year or less. Also, please look at this Illuminati card of the Nobel Peace Prize. The final 7 years began when Mr. Obama was chosen as the Nobel Peace Prize winner on the 7th day of Tabernacles in 2009, and then he was given the award just a few hours before the start of Kislev 24 in Norway, right after a large spiral appeared in the sky the night before. They chose the exact opposite of a black man, which would be a white woman. They do like to turn things upside down, or sometimes do the opposite to try to hide things and not make it too obvious.
This is not like other ordinary particles. It really is we're reaching into the fabric of the universe at a level we've never done before. This is telling us something. It's a key to the structure of the universe. It could be the final point in the Standard Model, but we know at some level we're pretty sure that the Standard Model is not the full picture. So we've kind of completed one part of the story, if you like, and we're on the frontier now. We're on the edge of a new exploration. And this could open up, and this could open up, and this could open up, maybe we see nothing extraordinary, and we understand that maybe this is the only part of the story that's left, or maybe we open up a whole new realm of discovery.
I'm proud of these results, and I hope that they open a door, and I hope that they open a door.
Break the code. And open the door, and open the door, and open the door. Break the code.
It's April 13th, 2029, and if it threads the keyhole, it will hit Earth April 13th, 2036. So it's named for the Egyptian god of death and darkness. It was named only after its trajectory was identified to intersect that of Earth. Had that not been the case, we would not have named it Apophis. Could name it like Tiffany or something, or Bambi.
So while we all went about our lives yesterday, we came very close to a catastrophic event here on planet Earth, and we didn't know about it.
I know it sounds crazy.
That something entered our solar system about 2 years ago, but then these 5 objects just stopped and are not acting according to any known laws. They just stopped.
Once you discover an asteroid, you got to wait a little while to get enough of a segment of its orbit to calculate what the full orbit will be to know if it will come in harm's way. So, we get the orbit. Turns out, in the year 2029, the month of Apophis will come so close to Earth that it will dip below our orbiting communication satellites. And it is the size of the Rose Bowl. It'll be the largest, closest thing we have ever observed to come by Earth. The orbit we now have for it is uncertain enough, because these things are hard to measure and hard to get an exact distance for. The orbit is uncertain enough, so we cannot tell you exactly where that trajectory will be. There is a range, a 600-mile zone. We call it the keyhole. If the asteroid goes through the middle of that keyhole, it will hit the Earth 13 years later. 500 kilometers due west of Santa Monica.
So it doesn't matter where it goes through that keyhole.
Now, that's if it goes through the center. If it goes through other places within that keyhole, then the contact point shifts further into the Pacific or closer towards North America. Or something, yeah. Yes. Okay? But if it goes through the center, it hits the Pacific Ocean, plunges down into the Pacific to a depth of 3 miles, at which point it explodes, cavitating the Pacific.
Hey! I know it sounds crazy.
In a hole that's 3 miles wide, 3 miles deep. That will send a tsunami wave outward from that location. That's 50 feet high, 5 stories. Oceans don't like having holes in them.
I know it sounds crazy.
So, this 3-mile-high wall does what? It's a 3-mile-high wall of water. Falls back into the hole, sloshing against itself with such ferocity that it rises high into the atmosphere and falls back down to the ocean, cavitating the ocean again. So now you make a cavity a second time. This cycle takes about 50 seconds. You can calculate it, okay? So here comes the first tsunami, and 50 seconds later comes another tsunami. Now, unlike the tsunami in Indonesia, which was one wave that went deep into the shore, this first wave needs a supply of water to exist, so that the next wave actually sucks back on it to create itself. So this tsunami will only go in about a quarter mile before it gets sucked back out for the next wave to come. Here's the problem. Whatever was there on the coastline is now brought back out to sea. And the next tsunami brings it back to the shore. All the $1 million homes in Malibu, they get taken out to the sea and then back. But this time they're in a slightly different shape. And so what happens is all the artificial stuff, all the houses, the factories, they get churned into this ablative force that sandblasts the entire west coast of North America clean. It's April 13th, 2029, and if it threads the keel, it will hit Earth April 13th, 2036. So
because what happens is you get an asteroid that breaks up from the gravitational stress as it nears bodies during its life, and so the asteroid becomes a train of objects that would then come and hit one right after another. This is so many hours before the next asteroid will hit. It's unlikely. This is so many hours before the next asteroid will hit. This is so many hours before the next asteroid will hit. This is so many hours before the next asteroid will hit.
Hey.
It's about the size of the fully open Rose Bowl in Pasadena. So the field plus all the seats, that would plunk nicely into that like an egg sits in an egg cup. Yeah. So that would, if that hits, it would, the most likely place it would hit would be the Pacific Ocean, and it would raise a 50-foot tsunami that would wipe clean the west coast of North America. Have a nice day. Yes, okay. But no one has to die because we would predict when this happens. We would know it. This is the good thing about the laws of physics. You can predict the future.
Nice.
Right, in ways that protect your life, extend your life expectancy.
Well, we can't say no one would die. I know it sounds crazy.
Hope you enjoyed.
We've had 2 signs that this is not a drill. After a gigantic hole appeared randomly over in Russia, 2 more have now appeared this week. 2 more have now appeared this week. 2 more have now appeared this week. And over in Germany, crop circles appeared overnight with no explanation in farmers' field as to who, what, or why. Scientists currently have no explanation for either phenomenon. 2 more have now appeared this week. 2 more have now appeared this week. But luckily for us, we have an expert on hand who can clear all of this up. Aliens are coming.
We know the size of an asteroid that would do very bad things, and it's about 1 kilometer across, a little more than 1/2 mile across. That size asteroid would disrupt civilization.
Gotcha.
No, it won't leave us extinct, but it could take out, it could disrupt the food chain, the transportation channels, things that we rely on for modern living.
Apocalypse.
Yes, so we would need to rebuild
what our modern culture of human life on Earth would be.
And that would be about a kilometer.
About a kilometer across, right. And you get to 10 kilometers, then you've got, at the 10 kilometer size, you've got extinction level asteroid.
And how big would the asteroid have been for the dinosaurs?
Dinosaur was about the size of Mount Everest. Yeah, so that's about 10 kilometers.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, oh yeah.
All right, cool.
Yeah, now that's much smaller than Earth. And in the old days, we thought it would just leave a crater, and you were just unlucky enough to be where the crater hit.
Right.
Then, you know. But we learned that the stuff it thrusts into the atmosphere blocks the sun, cloaks the Earth, knocks out the base of the food chain because photosynthesis can't unfold,
right.
and a wave of extinction percolates across the tree of life. Called panspermia, the transference of life from one planet to the next. If that's the case, that makes all of us descendants of Martians. I want to alert you.
Residents of the Astrakhan region witnessed an unusual glow of light in the night sky on Friday. A bright round object with a spiral of light behind it hovered in the sky for nearly 30 minutes. The Astrakhan region emergency services received over 50 calls about the incident. Official data of the nature of the object.
The orbits of some of our planets were being messed around with. So we've got Neptune, Uranus and Pluto, and they call it it's perturbation of the orbits. So in other words, there's some large other planet. This is how they found all the planets originally. They found the orbits were being messed around with, and they went looking for an object that was messing with the planetary orbits. So they went looking for another body, and Dr. Harrington noticed that we've got a bit of a problem with these other three planets. When he's completing his observations and he sent them off to NASA, he took a load of films, he made some celestial maps, he plotted the orbit of Planet X, he said he'd found it, and all those films went off to NASA and were mysteriously never seen again.
Also, the toxin itself would not appear in the autopsy?
Yes, so that there was no way of perceiving that the target was him.
Wow, we're really good at killing people, aren't we? We can give somebody a heart attack with a gun.
Because I got all the original Dr. Harrington notes, or a report anyway, which talks about what he found. Now, so he disappears. Now, I don't know if you've seen these on the internet before. Yeah, pictures of two suns. Very weird, isn't it?
Very weird.
Yeah, and they've had these in mainstream media, believe it or not. Not so much in the United States. This has been China and Russia have gone with these stories, talking about two suns in the sky. People are taking clear pictures of it, and it's all very real indicators that Nibiru is coming in to trash everything, and it's nearly here.
Imagine another life form that's 1% different from us. If you look at our closest genetic relative to human beings, it would be the chimpanzee. We share like 98+% identical DNA. We are smarter than a chimpanzee. So let's invent a measure of intelligence that makes humans unique. Let's say intelligence is your ability to like compose poetry, symphonies, do art, math, and science, let's say, okay? Let's make that as the arbitrary definition of intelligence for the moment. Chimps can't do any of that. Yet we share 98, 99% identical DNA. Okay? The most brilliant chimp there ever was maybe can do a little bit of sign language. Well, our toddlers can do that. Toddlers. Everything that we are that distinguishes us from chimps emerges from that 1% difference in DNA. Imagine another life form that's 1% different from us. The Hubble telescope, these grand, that's in that 1%. Maybe everything that we are that is not the chimp is not as smart compared to the chimp as we tell ourselves it is. Maybe the difference between constructing and launching a Hubble telescope and a chimp combining two finger motions as sign language, maybe that difference is not all that great. We tell ourselves it is, just the same way we label our books optical illusions. We tell ourselves it's a lot. Maybe it's almost nothing. How would we decide that? Imagine another life form that's 1% different from us in the direction that we are different from the chimp. Think about that. We got 1% difference and we're building a Hubble telescope. Go another 1%. What are we to they? We would be drooling, blithering idiots in their presence.
Because I looked at this evidence, and to be fair, I'm going to debunk it, okay? And just to make it even more debunkable, I went outside into my garden and I got a camera and I pointed it at the sun. And okay, it's a camera phone, but here's the effect I get. So look at that. Can you see the extra sun?
Right.
Lens flare. This one was taken by NASA satellite IRIS. The image is dated 21st of October 2003 and clearly shows us an image of what we think Nibiru looks like. Now, if you look at the code on it, which is 2003 UB313, that's the code given to dwarf planet Eris, which was discovered in January 2005. So this picture is showing us something which wasn't even discovered until 2 years later, and it was discovered by Palomar Observatory, which was a team led by Mike Brown. They discovered it's a trans-Neptunian object. It's 27% bigger than Pluto. It's 0.27 the mass of Earth. Its distance from the Sun is 96.4 AU, or astronomical units, which is 3 times the distance that Pluto's away. So this thing's really far away. We're only 1 AU from the Sun, and you could call this planet X because Pluto's called a planet, well, a dwarf planet. So if we're going to demote Pluto and we demote this one, it's not really planet X, but it's so far away. The best picture we have of Eris is taken by the Hubble Space Telescope, and it looks like this.
Now this is the Google box. Now, a lot of people have said that the image behind there is actually of Nibiru and Google is censoring it. Look at this. That's a creepy looking image, isn't it?
You see the bits coming off the edge of it. This is what a lot of people are saying is the dust trail coming off it, which is the iron-based dust trail. So this is like iron oxide, and this is one of the effects they've said of the iron oxide is when it comes swishing by our planet and we get a dose of this iron oxide trail off it. It's going to turn the rivers and the waters to blood, so it will make all the water go red.
They would take Stephen Hawking and roll him in front of their primate researchers and say, well, this one is like the most brilliant among them because he can do sort of astrophysics in his head. Oh, isn't that cute? Little Johnny can do that too. Oh, that's so nice. They'll look at our Hubble telescope and say, oh, isn't that quaint? Look at what they're doing. So I lay awake at nights wondering whether simply we as a species are simply too stupid to figure out the universe that we're investigating.
The good news is that these things happen very rarely, and they're separated by millions, even billions of years.
This is September, so we go into the red zone in September then. So this is what a lot of people were getting spooked by. Just about everybody you can get anywhere going underground. So underground is the place to be. So you certainly don't want to be out in the open, and you also, well, you're need a lot of supplies. I mean, what else could cause this? What else would make people dig holes under the entire United States? Is a third world war going to be that bad that you need to excavate that much? And if that's true, that's where the government suddenly moved to. Because did you know the government moved off the East Coast? Because they've got an underground military base right under the airport, haven't they? The kind of speed this thing's going to be coming in. And if you look there, can you see the big yellow 2016? So let's get into the hotspot here. So this is saying that as we come through November and December, this is going to be like Venus kind of brightness. So this is going to be the giveaway. So let's just say that the timing's wrong on this one. It might not be around March, but this would be what to look for, and this would be the amount of time you would have left until you start getting problems. Onto that there and say that they got it out at about the July kind of level. Which is why I'm thinking that our March date probably isn't going to happen. I say probably, meaning definitely. We've got all the events happening and everyone's been building up, but they've been digging holes since '78, haven't they? Yeah, even before then. I'm guessing that this isn't exactly going to be hidden knowledge from the top people round in the major nations. I think they're all in on it, aren't they? If this is a massive conspiracy and they all know that something's going to happen, I mean, we've got the underground stuff that's happened in Russia, we've got military movement all over the place, we've got Chinese cities hanging around with nobody in them that can house 30 million people, because they said that there could potentially be a 600-foot wave, like a giant tsunami. And was it? I think it was higher than that, actually. There's a giant tsunami that's going to take out the east coast of the States. And if that was the case, you'd want to be on high ground, which is why Colorado is a top place to be. The Chinese cities they've built are on high ground. I mean, this is all going back to the previous stories that have been floating around about all these odd places in the world where you've got safe havens underground, you've got bunkers for the elite, you've got places high up which can house millions of people around the world. It's just all a bit peculiar. But I mean, my money still is on it's going to be another miss for Nibiru. Look at December. We've got the faintest stars visible in an urban neighborhood with the naked eye. That's 3 months, isn't it? Just about, if we're in between December and January. And that was seen and it was observed, and we've got look at all the different places that spotted this thing. Yeah, no, they saw it. If this is the same object, we can't really say it's dark and it's hidden and it's infrared and nobody can see it, because if this is the same object, they got it, didn't they? But if that's the case, it's got to be 6 months, hasn't it? Do you remember the phantom time hypothesis? This would be interesting. Well, they said from this picture has got nothing to do with phantom time, but I thought it'd be interesting to put on anyway, because it is the Mayan calendar. Do you remember the 2012 end of everything? Well, get this. In between, there's a hypothesis going around between the years 600 and 900 AD that those 300 years are actually missing, that somebody messed with the calendars and threw us forward because an emperor just wanted to live later. There was some weird story behind it, I can't remember, but you should go and look it up. There is a phantom time hypothesis, and people have spent quite some time on this and saying that the Dark Ages, actually history was fabricated and they didn't really happen. Now that'd be a real problem, because that would mean we haven't got to the end of the Mayan calendar yet. This is September, so we go into the red zone in September then. So this is what a lot of people were getting spooked. If there is something that's out on the edge or it's coming by and it's nearer to them, it's doing some pretty horrible things to them. Because if we've got another sun, here we go, look, 89 to 2002. Look at that, it's gone swirly. If you put it into the Bible, this thing's going to turn up. You'll love this. Remember your alien messiah? I'm not sure if you've looked into this angle, which is definitely going to make your head spin. This is an ET spaceship, which is the New Jerusalem. So, and they worked it out, because the origin of man is a little bit fishy, and if you talk to a geneticist, a guy who's willing to talk off record, he'll tell you that if you want to say, well, man evolved from a monkey, didn't it? That's the official story, right? Well, if we evolved from monkeys, why are there still monkeys? Because surely they would have all evolved, right? In fact, we're more stupid than we were before. We're going to have the New Jerusalem, which is going to show up. Notice the diameter, where they said, my Bible knowledge is not great, but I think they were saying in the Bible that it was 1,300, I'm just reading off the screen here. They said it was the same width as it was the same length and width. Okay, so they worked out, this is one of the designs. Somebody else says that the New Jerusalem could be a pyramid as well, with a square base. But this could be like the snow globe kind of version of it, which would work as well. So 1325.75 miles across. So I mean, people can look into this a little bit more, but I mean, how's one of those things going to show up? So is this pushing on the rapture? You know, this is the other thing, because with all the deception and everything, alien messiah, and you've got potentially the rapture, you've got alien spaceships or a giant ship coming down. Do you get on board? What are you going to do?
Man, this stuff is crazy.
The Maya and Incas of South America believed a race of giants existed on Earth before the Great Flood. So did many other ancient civilizations. In the American Midwest, there are also many large mounds, which are said to be graves.
Mass graves of giants were opened. Some of the men 8 feet tall, some of the women 7 feet tall, some records of men 10 feet tall, and extremely large skulls. And extraordinarily, some of these skulls had horns, some had extra rows of teeth, some had other what we would call anomalies, but they were extraordinarily large skulls and extraordinarily large people. The one that was found in Bridal Veil Falls, California by a group of miners, first they found this wall with very intricate hieroglyphics. They assumed that they were finding gold behind the wall. They broke it down and they found this woman holding a child covered with fur and a strange kind of dust. The same tall female mummified remains have been found in Texas. They have been found in Death Valley.
A number of mounds in the Midwest in America were excavated starting in around 1850. And in many cases, they would find skeletons of people who were in excess of 7 feet tall. And in many cases, they had double rows of teeth, as well as, in some cases, 6 fingers on each hand and 6 toes on each foot.
That tribe would eat the dead.
Is it that there is some kind of archaeological cover-up that has occurred here? What happened to these giants? There was nearly 60 skeletons brought out of this cave, but today they're nowhere to be found.
Tantalizing clues to their existence can be found all over the world.
In Britain, it was inhabited only by giants. And after the fall of Troy, a hero called Brutus came here with all his men and decided to conquer Albion. And so they battled for a bit with all these very savage giants. And they slew most of them. This was somebody in the past with a technology that we don't have, or a magical skill we don't have, creating these things.
Constructed from an estimated 40,000 tons of loose rocks, it is remarkably reminiscent of Stonehenge. Both have been dated at around 5,000 years old. Gilgal is also said to be associated with giants.
Machu Picchu, Tiahuanaco, Sacsayhuaman. I think it was a world peopled by giants who structured their buildings out of massive building blocks, 500-ton, 250-ton blocks.
Malta has gigantic temples. They date really back to the past. Nobody knows exactly, but 5,000 years at least BC. There are gigantic stone platforms all over the place. The largest of it was once 29 meters long. Its weight has been calculated with 900 tons. Now, this is on a place where we are 4,100 meters high in the Andes, which means there are no trees, no wood, nothing. It is not possible to transport a 900-ton platform without any wooden rollers, even with.
This stuff is crazy, man.
do. Martha Graham, Martha Graham, Martha Graham, or Twyla, Twyla, Twyla.
Hey, man, don't be fooled, man. This stuff is crazy.
Crash dummy. I mean, it was so absurd and asinine, it was embarrassing. That's how bad it was.
Oh, it really was. Yeah, it was shocking. And here we have another reversal from that same interview.
I'm sorry, I just don't have any information for that. All I know is what the Air Force did, and that if you overlay much of their claims and you look at the Air Force scientific research, you can see it's obvious that what we're talking about at Roswell.
And here he says, share a secret with NASA.
Share a secret with NASA. Share a secret with NASA. Share a secret with NASA.
So clearly, yeah, something is there, and that reversal occurs right where he says the Air Force's scientific research. So clearly, something was shared with NASA. So.
Well, obvious intrigue, obvious conspiracy, obvious lies again. So it's the lie of omission. It's what they're not telling us that is crucial.
Yeah, absolutely correct. Now we're moving on to a chap named Colonel Philip Corso, who's since deceased, and he came out and wrote a book called The Day After Roswell, where he claimed he had seen alien bodies from Roswell. So here he says, "Forwards, I saw a body in Fort Riley, Kansas."
Saw a body at Fort Riley, Kansas, but I put that out of my mind until I could corroborate the information.
And here he says, "I looked at it."
On many places on Earth, we find structures which could be related or to ETs, to a technology which we do not understand, or to giants.
Baalbek in particular is a very good example. That has the trilithon. Those are the largest stones in the world ever used for construction. They're so large we don't even know their actual weight. Those stones were somehow quarried, moved 5 miles, lifted 25, 30 feet in the air, and placed together so closely that you can't fit a razor blade or a piece of paper in between them.
Towards the end of the 19th century, this 9-footer was given to the Russian Tsar as a gift. Here's Jack the Giant Killer presenting his latest capture to the king.
It seems quite clear that there were gigantic beings that seemed to stem from pre-flood era.
Of the opinion that under better atmospheric conditions, people were living not only longer, but they were taller, much taller.
Giants and dinosaurs could not exist today as they did in the past because the atmospheric conditions simply will not permit it.
We had a greater ozone layer at the time prior to the flood. At the time of the flood, it was diminished to about 1/7 of what it was at that time, and therefore, life on this earth as we know it no longer has the same life expectancy as it did at the time of the flood.
The conclusion in the tradition seems to be fairly clear that gigantic beings were existing at one time, and that as human history developed, or as physiological, emotional, spiritual changes took place, those beings who survived seemed to be of a smaller gene pool. But the possibility that there were other strands of humanity, as it were, seems to be almost explicitly stated in the Bible.
On their return, they reported, "All the people we saw there are men of gigantic size. We felt no bigger than grasshoppers, and that is how we looked to them." The tribes continued northeast to Mount Seir, known today as Petra in Jordan. But that too, as mentioned in the Bible, had been settled by giants. Wherever they looked, it seemed they found the remnants of giants.
There were giants in the earth in those days. And if we take that literally rather than symbolically, that there were simply men of great powers and extraordinary abilities, then we could say that the first men, the first humans, were giants, or we could theorize that these giants came from somewhere else and used Earth as a colony.
They wrote that the giants were celestial beings who came not from Earth, but from another planet. As 6,000 years ago, another remarkable civilization evolved. Its people were the Sumerians, who had an extraordinarily advanced culture.
They had the first bicameral Congress, they had the first writing, they had the first school systems, and you just go on and on and on. So you have to ask, well, where did all this come from? What they have to say, not just in one place, but over and over and over again, is that they were taught civilization by these beings that came from the heavens to the earth. They call them the Anunnaki.
This Sumerian cylinder seal from a Berlin museum is astonishing for several reasons. First, it depicts our solar system with the sun at the center and the planets arrayed around it, a fact not known to European science till around 300 years ago. It also shows the planet Pluto, which we didn't discover till 1930. And amazingly, there's another planet, which the Sumerians called Nibiru, and believed that it was from where the Anunnaki, or celestial giants, came from. For it's in our own solar system that a mysterious object has recently been detected, near where the Sumerians placed their planet Nibiru, home of the Anunnaki.
More than 400,000 years ago, that these Anunnaki came from space and landed on the earth in the Tigris-Euphrates Valley. They began to set up a colony that they called Eden. The sperm of one of the Anunnaki, mixed that with the ovum of a primitive humanoid, probably one of these primitives that we are now finding archaeological remains of in Africa, the famous Lucy. And they produced a hybrid which eventually became Cro-Magnon or modern man.
The book of Baruch says, "Then the Lord created the great flood, destroyed all life, which then was on earth, including the 4,090,000 giants."
Or more and more encounters with giants emerging from UFOs. That the Anunnaki, or celestial giants, are coming back.
And we are therefore getting far more reports of giants being seen today than we did 30 or 40 years ago.
In this instance, there were at least 20 witnesses. Could they all have been dreaming the same dream in broad daylight?
Include scientists, geologists, and also some military people went to the site immediately thereafter. They were on the site on the 3rd of October studying and collecting specimens.
Drawings of the landings by children who were there capture the event vividly.
Policemen, school teachers, students, scientists who had witnessed similar or even differently shaped UFOs. The underlying theme was that giant-like beings exited from strange-looking craft.
Once we had a genuine large number of people all correlating with one another, describing the appearance of these giants. So it was not a case of you simply believe a witness or you don't. Here you couldn't fail to believe them because there were so many of them talking in concert.
The creatures started coming out. They did not look too much like humans. They were much taller than humans. They did have shoulders, but I didn't see the head.
He was huge, really huge, bigger than we are. He was a mighty figure.
Eso está extraño con pinga, bro. ¿Qué es eso, bro? Bueno, esto es de Miami. Si los extraterrestres vienen aquí, creo que nos van a visitar primero. ¿Qué pinga es eso, bro? Tira el foto está yendo para que ya lo vean. Eso es un avión. Oye, va para abajo, papu. Hey, homie! The fuck is this, man? 80? 80?
Oye, mira cómo se vira eso, cómo se vira de lado, bro.
Pero viene para acá, ¿qué cosa? Viene para acá, vamos. ¿Tú crees?
O está mirando para allá.
Ahí no está cayendo eso, bro.
Cere, ¿qué pinga es eso, bro? Look at this.
¿Eso va para abajo o va para arriba? Ah, pero es que ese es humo, pero con luz, no entiendo.
¿Pero por qué prendido?
Cuidado, que pase por arriba. Mira, desapareció.
So if this is coming round and look at the top one, I mean, there's something meaner at the top. So I don't know. No, the Mayan calendar was a huge miss. It wasn't the end of the world. I mean, it could have just said it's the end of an era and there'll be a new era. But if we're all running out because all our calendars are wrong, I mean, that just throws everything out, doesn't it? But we just don't know, do we? There's evidence scattered everywhere, but it's thin, isn't it? Well, if you wanted to throw in some geoengineering, that makes things iffy when you're making the land and the sky into a war zone, because we got HARP, haven't we? If you were planning a HARP war with other nations that have the same technology, you know who's going to suffer the most. It's going to be people on top side, isn't it? But I don't think we can take this story and we can throw it away and we can say, well, it didn't happen in 2003, I think was one of the times it was meant to happen. It just keeps coming back. The Nibiru story is always there and people are like, nah, this is pure fabrication. It's just not going to happen. We've been told it's behind the sun. It's hiding somewhere, you know, there's always some kind of reason why we can't see it. But when it does pop up, I think at the very least we'll have 40 days notice on it. But I think this is one of those stories that you can kind of tuck away in your top drawer and just go, But I'm not gonna entirely bin this story, because there's some strange stuff going on, and people have seen something that looks awful like this before. Even if it isn't Planet X, there's something swinging around every 350 years that's causing a lot of trouble. And we're about due for another one. Maybe not this year, maybe not next year, but there's something out there, and you know, I think it would be a good idea to keep an eye out for it, don't you? You know, I think whatever it is that's going to happen, I think the way that we're going to survive is certainly together. And I think if you're on your own,
they'll look at our Hubble telescope and say, "Oh, isn't that quaint? Look at what they're doing." So I lay awake at nights wondering whether simply we as a species are simply too stupid to figure out the universe that we're investigating.
This is September, so we go into the red zone in September then. So this is what a lot of people were getting spooked by. That was related to the original flood, like I was saying, when it whacked Tiamat, or if it came through and knocked out Ceres and created the asteroid belt, don't know. But either way, if something big turned up, that's looking similar to the last time something really bad happened, isn't it? What NASA will tell you is that most solar systems are actually not singular solar systems, they're binary, which means that you've got a sun and then another sun. So there's two suns, and effectively they would be known as, there'd be two solar systems, but effectively going round each other kind of thing, you know? So they interact with each other, and they're binary solar systems, and they say 80% of solar systems are like that. If we've got a sun coming in that's got Nibiru going round it, it's coming into the solar system, and this thing's like a heater. Now, look at what's happened to Venus. See the picture?
Right.
From 1978, right, where that map of the tunnels was coming from in the 70s, look at that, to 1999, we've got a couple of decades here, and a 2,500% increase in green light coming off Venus. That's a lot of light, isn't it, coming off it? That's enormous. Right. And then look, rapid appearance of clouds on Mars. You know, this stuff is weird, isn't it? Originating out here, but we've got a couple of decades here, and then look, 50% erosion of ice features, and you can't hide it. I mean, if you're going on about Jupiter and what's going on with Jupiter's white ovals, look at them changing. I mean, Jupiter's got, remember that the great big spot on Jupiter? There's a lot of really weird stuff going on, saying Jupiter has gone up 18 degrees in 10 years. I mean, what would happen if that happened to us on Earth? 18 degrees in 10 years? I mean, look at this. Towering storms more than 100 kilometers high. 100-kilometer high storms going through Jupiter's cloud deck for the first time. I mean, that's pretty severe. I mean, you know, that's right. It's not good to see that happening. And then look at this. This is the cue ball. So we've got Uranus here. Now, can you spot any distinctive features on that? That is a cue ball picture. Okay. Now that's 1986. Now look what happens to it. And then look, it gets hit by huge storms. And you can see, I mean, these are enormous things. And this is happening all over the place. That's a bit of a problem. Look at that, from 1996 to 2002. It's 40% brighter. It's almost as if that thing's closer to what's coming in, and they're getting a lot of changes because they're nearer to it than we are. This is like a comet tail. You know those wing bits coming off the side of it? Those are millions of miles long. It's going to be like someone's macing the planet. Well, exactly. This is our biggest problem. So we've got all this going on, and got all the climate change, of course, because you know, they were very quick, weren't they, to say climate change is our fault. Well, right. Wouldn't it make you feel a little bit strange if I said that climate change isn't just on Earth, it's happening through the whole solar system? And do you remember we were talking about 12,000 BC when we had our little blip with the sun and the flood? Right. Well, if you look at the solar activity there, they've done a chart. They've had to dig up like earth cores and things to work out how much energy the sun was putting out, but they apparently put this together over tens of thousands of years here, and they've worked out that the sun is just as angry as it was about 12,000 BC, which is a bit awkward, because if you're going to play the Nibiru card here, Nibiru's got Nemesis, which is its sun that it's going around, which is creeping into our solar system, and what's going to get you more heat? Second sun's probably going to help, isn't it?
На этой неделе на небе появился новый объект, слабая красноватая точка. Пока ее наблюдают только астрономы, но уже к маю 2011 года ее можно будет увидеть и невооруженным глазом. Это темная планета, она же Нибиру, таинственная часть нашей Солнечной системы. Вероятность ее существования НАСА признала лишь в 1982 году, при том, что шумеры еще 5000 лет назад уже называли ее крылатым диском и утверждали, что появление Нибиру на небосклоне сулит одни неприятности. Какие именно, выяснил Александр Огородников.
Может ли небо упасть на Землю? Вопрос уже не актуальный. Прогрессивное человечество ждет более грандиозного события – падения на Землю другой планеты. Конечно, не в прямом смысле слова, но планета Нибиру подлетит к нам так близко, что последствия могут быть катастрофическими. Дело в том, что Нибиру, или как еще ее называют планета X, гораздо крупнее Земли, а значит, ее гравитационное поле гораздо сильнее. Его разрушительное влияние мы почувствуем в конце 2012 года, когда сближение будет максимальным. Как следствие, изменение наклона нашей планеты, а соответственно и полюсов. Глобальное похолодание там, где сейчас тепло, и очередной всемирный потоп. 2/3 населения нашей планеты попросту погибнет. Согласно одной из теорий, Нибиру – это планета богов. В древних текстах их еще называли Анунаки, то есть сошедшие с небес.
Раз в 3600 лет она якобы появляется, приближается к Солнечной системе, к Земле.
Согласно некоторым расчетам, к 2011 году темную планету будет видно даже невооруженным глазом, а 21 декабря 2012 года Нибиру пролетит мимо Земли и засияет на нашем небосклоне яркой красной звездой, словно второе Солнце. Кстати, по случайному ли совпадению или нет, но именно в этот день заканчивает...
Про неї знали ще стародавні шумери. Про неї знає і НАСА. Та на уроках астрономії ви не почуєте про неї ані слова. Колись вона вже була тут. Існування невідомої планети забороняють говорити вголос. Нібіру. Ліпше запам'ятати назву цього світила, бо вона наближається. У 72-му році Джозеф Брейді з Каліфорнійського університету помітив, що якась невідома планета викликає гравітаційне безладдя орбіти комети Галлея. Розрахунки астронома показали, що вона в 5 разів масивніша за Землю. Та цю інформацію швидко прикрили, пославшись на похибки дослідницького апарату. Тривалий час дослідники НАСА замовчували відомості про Нібіру. Усю інформацію про неї суворо оберігають і не піддають розголосу. Повторення всесвітнього потопу. Це станеться, якщо Нібіру пройде над одним із полюсів. Крига розтане, і спасіння тонучих – справа рук самих потопельників. Інформацію про Нібіру і досі замовчують. Жодної програми, жодного документального фільму. НАСА не публікує результатів своїх досліджень. Та зараз мовчати вже немає сенсу. І відомості про червону планету спливають на поверхню. А в травні 2012-го її побачать усі неозброєним оком. У вересні того ж року Нібіра буде схожа на друге сонце, тільки червоного кольору. Та найгірше чекає на нас у грудні 2012-го, коли Нібіру наблизиться до Земли на ризиковану дистанцию.
Небесное тело, превышающее размеры Земли в 5 раз, пройдет по орбите в опасной близости от нашей планеты. Сила его притяжения будет настолько мощной, что Земля может поменять наклон. Если это случится, то изменившаяся ось вызовет смену магнитных полюсов. И тогда на планету обрушатся невиданные силы наводнения и извержения вулкана, сметающие все на своем пути смерчи и землетрясения. Это Захарий Ситчин, знаменитый американский ученый. В 1978 году Ситчин делает сенсационное заявление. В Солнечной системе вовсе не 9 планет, как считает официальная наука, а 10. По утверждению ученого, кроме всем известных планет, существует еще одна – Нибиру. Она блуждает в космосе по невероятно вытянутой орбите и проходит через Солнечную систему раз в 3600 лет. К теории Захария Ситчина в научном сообществе отнеслись с недоверием. Астрономы не могли поверить в то, чего не видно в космическом пространстве даже в самые мощные телескопы. Однако уже в начале 80-х, после длительных математических вычислений и построения компьютерных моделей, существование планеты Нибиру было доказано.
В 1982 году НАСА допустила существование большой планеты, которой впоследствии было дано название Нибиру.
В 2005 году американские астрофизики заявили, что на расстоянии приблизительно в 1 световой год от Земли располагается огромное космическое тело. Но главное, на огромной скорости оно приближается к нашей планете. Небесное тело настолько темное, что ни оптические телескопы, ни другие приборы не в состоянии его увидеть. Зафиксировать загадочный космический объект ученые смогли лишь 2 года назад, когда на земную орбиту вышел новый сверхмощный инфракрасный телескоп. То, что увидели астрономы на расшифрованных снимках, сделанных с телескопа, надолго повергло их в шок. В черной пустоте космического пространства четко угадывались очертания огромной планеты. Сомнений уже не оставалось. Это Нибиру.
Инфракрасный спутник, который действительно засек объект достаточно больших размеров, и ему удалось этот объект не только засечь, но и как-то зафиксировать, сфотографировать.
После изучения параметров и траектории движения гигантской планеты, ученые пришли к неутешительному выводу. Нибиру больше Земли в 5 раз. Но самое страшное, через 3 года она может пролететь в нескольких сотнях километров от Земли. Находясь так близко к нашей планете, она запросто сможет сорвать с нее атмосферу. Ученые выяснили, что однажды Нибиру уже погубила другую планету. Оказалось, что 16 миллионов лет назад в нашей Солнечной системе существовала планета Фаэтон. Она располагалась между Марсом и Юпитером. Теперь на ее месте пояс астероидов. Ученые считают этот пояс не что иное, как осколки древней планеты. По словам астрофизиков, скорее всего, Нибиру столкнулась с Фаэтоном, когда она в очередной раз проходила через Солнечную систему. После такого удара планета разлетелась на куски. По словам ученых, правительство просто скрывает от человечества правду, чтобы не вызывать панику.
Представители всех военных разведок мира эту информацию о том, что Нибиру может принести значительный ущерб, урон, разрушение и даже гибель жителей Земли, имеют. А не разглашается эта информация и не становится достоянием общественности только лишь потому, что НАСА и все эти структуры хотят спасти достойных представителей Земли, спасти всех, они
4 times larger than Jupiter. It dwarfs Jupiter and the Earth, as you see in this illustration. It has already been sighted by astronomers in the southern hemisphere, as you can see in this picture. Citing deviations in the movement of Pluto, NASA has been tracking it for over 50 years. Russia has been preparing by completing the construction of 5,000 underground shelters in Moscow in 2012. FEMA has prepared by purchasing millions of plastic containers for coffins. I know you've heard of them. You're probably familiar with this. And here's the images. What are they preparing for? The United States has embarked on a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week effort to build massive underground shelters for over 30 years. These are reserved for government officials and high-ranking military personnel. Many people believe that the Denver airport, as you see in this marker, it says New World Airport, is one of those places. Deviations of the movement of the sun proves the existence of an object of significant gravitational pull coming into our solar system. Here is the orbit. It will enter into our solar system and pass between the Earth and the sun, blocking out the light of the sun for about 3 days. And the Bible says, "And I beheld when he opened the 6th seal, and lo, there was a great earthquake, and the sun became black as sackcloth as hair, and the moon became as blood." The earthquake will be caused by the increased gravitational forces caused by the alignment of the sun, Nibiru, and the Earth. The darkness caused by Nibiru's extreme size and moon appearing red is caused by a partial blockage of light typically seen in lunar eclipses, as you see in this illustration with the Earth blocking out the light to the moon. And here you can see the moon going through its lunar eclipse, the block light turning it red. What's going to happen is the Earth is going to tilt on its axis very quickly, causing tremendous stress on the Earth's crust. This will cause a sudden movement in the Earth's axis, resulting in dramatic changes in the wind patterns, tremendous earthquakes, movements in the Earth's crust, and tsunamis on every coast. Millions, possibly billions, will die. And the heavens depart as a scroll when it was rolled together, and every mountain and isle is moved out of their places. Can you imagine it? And the kings of the earth, and the great men and rich men, and the chief captains and mighty men, and every bondman and every free man, hid themselves in the dens in the rocks of the mountains. The dens in the rocks of the mountains sounds like shelters to me. And the kings of the earth, and the great men, the rich men, the chief captains, and the mighty men, who are these people? Well, they're government officials and high-ranking military personnel. Hid themselves in the dens and in the rocks of the mountains? Sounds like shelters. And here you have it. Reserved for government officials and high-ranking military personnel. You may ask yourself, what can I do? How can I protect myself? Well, you have to call out to the one that's in control of all of this, the only one that can protect you during the troubled times ahead, and that is Jesus. I know that I've sinned. Please forgive me and come into my heart. He says, "Come unto me, all ye labor and heavy laden, and I will give you rest." And he says, "I am with you always, even unto the end of the world."
Hi, Chris Potter here. How are you today? This video is in regards to why we can't see Planet X, Nibiru, Hercobulus, Destroyer, Purifier, what the F you want to call this thing, mini solar system, why we can't see it. Now, go outside and just look what's in front of you. Friggin' houses, apartments. That's one of the reasons why you don't see it. Chemtrails, geoengineering. Oh no, that's not happening! But there's 144 patents. Go check out geoengineeringwatch.org. Yeah, you're being sprayed. End of story. But I'm not saying that it's being done to hide Nibiru, Planet X, Hercobulus, Destroyer, Purifier, Nemesis, whatever, right? But it's kind of interesting that it does obstruct your view. Most planetary objects can only be seen through infrared because they are not in the visible light spectrum. Go get an infrared camera and you'll be able to see it. Now, okay, yeah, I actually saw it, and there are other people that have taken pictures of the red-brown dwarf. When I say it, I mean the red-brown dwarf. I mean our buddy sun, like the partner sun, because we got a binary solar system, okay? 2 suns, okay? I think we got 3, but 2, okay? Going around each other. And our buddy sun, like our brother sun, yeah, he be coming back. And every time he be coming back, stuff happens. Like people be dying. Like most of the people be dying. Earthquakes, volcanoes, sinkholes, mass freaking animal deaths, and tsunamis, and, you know, water turning red and bloody. Wormwood hitting the Atlantic seaboard, you know, just weird stuff like that. That happens every type of cyclic pattern and cyclic pattern, whatever you want to call it, and tends to wipe out most of the people on the planet Earth, and we just start all over again. So there's this little thing that, yeah, you can't see it too well. Now, why did I see it? I can't really explain it to you. I was only able to see it for about 1.5 minutes. And it was 6:55 in the morning on 1:15:15. The sun was on the very left. It had not even come up yet. The red-brown dwarf was in the horizon on the right. Because of smog is another reason you can't see this stuff. As well as its position currently in the outside of the solar system. Some people say it's like right here next to Jupiter. It's coming into the inner solar system, meaning that it's going to pass between us and the sun. Okay? So it's pretty close. It meaning the sun, and it appears to have its own planets and moons. Yeah. So rest assured, from what I understand, most of the issue is simply that it is an infrared light spectrum issue or visible light spectrum issue. You need to have an infrared telescope. Even the clear obstruction of driving down the road and cars in front of you and buildings, right? Like even going up into the mountains, there's trees and other mountains that are in the way. This thing is not just like there and huge. It's gonna be. It's gonna be. Yeah. Nibiru's the planet. That's one of the planet. That thing's gonna be so big, it's gonna be 50 times the size of the moon, and it's gonna rip the continental flipping crust from the bottom to the top of the planet in 30 minutes flat. And the U.S. military knows that. Yes, they do. Folks, they've known about this thing for a long time. So our little meager questions about why can't I see it? There's a lot of reasons you can't see it that are very, 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 very rudimentary and common sense in nature. Like you walk outside and stuff is in front of you, and that's why you can't see it. Now, you can go ahead and do your own research as to what the physics and astrophysics behind that is, because I'm not here to address that today. I'm only here to address some of the very basic, you know, skilled blue-collar level, because that seems to be where most of us are, you know, a little bit above stupid. And as long as I communicate to you on that level, I think you'll kind of get it. Okay? Have a great life. Bye-bye now.
There's a map. Look at that one. Oh, this is yeah, this is everywhere. Look at it.
And it's all over the world.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. There's a lot of underground bases now everywhere, aren't there?
Yes, there are.
Now, if you've known about something for, I don't know, let's give this 40 years, something that's going to happen and it's going to affect the surface of the planet, but you have no idea where it's going to land. I mean, some people have probably dialed it in a bit better than us, because I mean, we're shooting in the dark here a little bit. So the only way we can really get any good information is by following the people who've definitely got better information than us. And that's got to be expensive, hasn't it, digging tunnels like that? Not just that, they've got massive cities with nobody in them. You remember that? They said, well, it's because of China's economics that they had to carry on building, even if they're building enormous cities with nobody in. I mean, that wouldn't make an awful lot of sense, would it? Do you remember the stories of all the FEMA train? Don't you think that's going to be right up in people's heads when they say, that's what's coming through, and we are in the end times, and by the way, we've got a load of diseases coming, and then they start reading from the Bible and people start getting a little bit worried because it doesn't say good things, does it, in the Bible when it comes to the end times? Yeah, which, I mean, the thing is, when this happens, there's going to be more to come. So if people are reading from the Bible, then there's the bad news that when this thing comes by, it's going to come by again. So this is where it gets really annoying. It's supposed to come back in 5 months and do it again.
Think about that. We got 1% difference and we're building the Hubble telescope. Go another 1%. What are we to they? We would be drooling, blithering idiots in their presence.
So while we all went about our lives yesterday, we came very close to a catastrophic event here on planet Earth, and we didn't know about.
This is September, so we go into the red zone in September then. So this is what a lot of people were getting spooked by.
I lay awake at nights wondering whether simply we as a species are simply too stupid to figure out the universe that we're investigating.
Look at that. Look at the trees. Oh my god. It's like nuts. It's blacked out. Look at that. Oh my god, no, I gotta keep filming for filming this.
And you can actually at the very top see kind of a notch where you're looking through to the space on the other side. And that canyon is really quite deep. It's about 4 to 6 miles deep. I find that fascinating.
Zooming in on this area. Here's the image, here it comes. The most stunning thing about this, well, there's many stunning things, but the most striking geologically is we have not yet found a single impact crater on this image. This means this is a very young surface because Pluto is being bombarded by other objects in the Kuiper Belt, and it's bound craters happen. So we just eyeballing it, we think it has to be probably less than 100 million years old, which is a small fraction of the 4.5 billion year age of the solar system. There is no giant body that can be deforming Pluto on an ongoing regular basis to heat the interior. Charon is just too small to do that. So this is telling us that you do not need tidal heating to power ongoing recent geological activity on icy worlds. That's a really important discovery that we just made this morning.
Tidal energy, due to breaking into orbit around Neptune, could have
been powering the activity on Triton. So that may have been the case for Triton, but it can't be the case for Pluto, and now we've settled the fact that these very small planets can be very active after a long time, and I think it's going to send a lot of geophysicists back to the drawing boards to try to understand how exactly you do that.
In one breath, they're saying they were quite skeptical the planet could exist, and then they go on to tell you exactly how big it is and that it's got its own orbit and everything else. So I don't really get it. If you read it, you know, it's saying this would be a real ninth planet, he added. Yeah, I just don't understand why they would make this comment, tell you that it's got its own orbit and everything else, and then not tell you it's there. I don't, and then tell you it might be there. It's kind of funny to read, actually.
Look at this picture. It's beautiful. Okay, so on the left you got the Big Dipper, on the right you got Cassiopeia, and right in the middle is called Polaris, otherwise known as the North Star. Watch this. It's growing brighter. This is amazing. Look, +3. The story says the mystery of the North Star. Astronomers baffled. That's right. Because God can do things that we can't understand. You know why? He created those stars. To find Polaris is getting brighter. A team has found that Polaris, which is the North Star, is 2.5 times brighter today than in 137 CE. In other words, the year of 137. I'm amazed. Experts say the find is entirely unexpected. I'm going to put a link to this story. This person has been calling and harassing me all day. It's blocked. That's the new thing now. Somebody calling you and harassing you, just block it. So, look at this. The star has suddenly reversed, suddenly it says, 2 decades of dimming. I don't have to read the whole article to you, but I think it's amazing. And you know why I find this so amazing? Not just because the Lord told me that 2014 would be the year of miracle signs and wonders. And prayerfully, we hope it's the year of the return of Christ Jesus, our Lord, to get us out of this mess that the world's become. But also, the other night, I don't know if I mentioned this in the video or not, but the other night, I think I did. I went out.
It's about 10:30 a.m. near Cincinnati, Ohio, and I'm going to show you something that's kind of trippy. I'm going to take this card right here. It's a normal piece of paper, a couple inches long, about 1 inch wide. It's a valet slip from downtown. I'm just going to use this. I'm going to use it to block the screen, kind of like just partially, so that you can see something behind the sun, and that I can prove that it's not lens glare. And that's what all these people are saying, is that you're seeing lens glare and you're seeing things that aren't there. So give me just a second. Okay. So, if you didn't know, that's the sun. And at the bottom of the screen you'll see lens glare. Notice it moves very easily. I mean, it has a very wide range depending on how you angle your screen. Alright, now if I take this valet slip and I come up just enough on the camera, you can see that little circle. It's about just to the top right of the sun. Now you can say that this is lens glare. Now if I move it this way, it doesn't move. It stays in the same spot. If I come back, oops, sorry, it's windy. If I come back and move this way, it stays above the sun, right there. Now if that's lens glare, then how come it's not moving like this one? Like that.
Catch it on time lapse and regular video. Let's zoom in a little further on this. See it behind the trees. The lens flare over here. Let's zoom in on that. See, behind the trees. Oh my gosh, people. Let's get right with God. I will show wonders in the heavens and in the earth. Are there spots on this thing? I'm not sure. The time lapse can't zoom in on it. Let's go back to time lapse. Hi everyone, this is Nibiru Watcher, observing this second object. See the trees in the background. I've been catching this on time lapse. See if I can see the trees blowing in the background. What is that object? Is it Nibiru or its moon? And that black object, maybe this, it couldn't be Nibiru, it's moving too fast around the sun. Or is it? Wow. Let's see that black object inside. There's almost the center of this second object. Let me zoom out a little bit. Now I'm going to leave it just like that, actually. So I'm going to move the camera out a little bit. You can see the lens flare there. Put this and zoom out. See the lens flare. Let me stop talking about the stupid lens flare. Let's zoom in on this one object. 12 times optical zoom plus digital zoom. Appears to be moving closer to the sun and rotating definitely counterclockwise. It should be tracking it all throughout the day. So surprised that they're letting us see this with no chemtrails this time. Clearly you can see the pine needles in front of this object. If you say lens flare, well, I've already left my piece with that. See if I can zoom in just a hair better. I don't know if I can zoom in any better. I'll leave it alone. Let's put a welder's filter in front of it. See what it looks like. Does seem to be too smooth of a round object to be a sun. It looked like Nemesis at first when it was low on the horizon, but since it's been following up with the sun, it's almost as fast as the sun is moving. Actually, it must be moving faster. Let me zoom back out a little bit. You can see our lens flare again here. Notice how the lens flare is coming from this object, almost like in my other videos. I wonder what that looks like as the sun shines through this object onto the earth. Okay, I'm going to go back to time lapse.